Welcome to See Beneath Your Beautiful, where guests share stories of adversity and perseverance, which inspire, encourage, and challenge us. We embrace these tough conversations, intimately exploring our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
Elin Adcock, friend of Hera, mother to Zach, Eli, and Gabriel, wife to Larry, just trying to make it through life and be the best mother and sister and daughter that I can be.
How old are your kids?
My oldest son, Zach, is 30. My middle son, Eli, is 26. And my youngest is 16 and still lives at home. That's here with my husband and I. And I have a lot of claim to fame, like all the subjects that we could talk about. You know, I've got lots of things in common with you. My mother has passed. I had a horrible relationship with her, and we're not going to go there today, I don't think. Let's talk about what we're going through with Larry. I told you, I think that my favorite episode of yours is the one with you and Philip, where the two of you are talking. And Larry and I have a relationship just like you have. I should say we had a relationship just like you had, because he has been struck with a neurodegenerative brain disease. It is the most common form of dementia that people don't know about, called frontotemporal degeneration, which is an umbrella term for a lot of diseases. But essentially, the frontal lobes of his brain and the temporal lobes of his brain are not working anymore. And people think of dementia and they think of Alzheimer's, and this is nothing like Alzheimer's. With Alzheimer's, you lose your memories, but you retain your personality. And with frontotemporal dementia, usually there are behavioral issues that come up, like the person that you knew is gone. That person is just completely gone. Their personality changes. Sometimes these patients end up in jail, or they end up divorced, or they're shoplifting. They're stealing things because they don't understand that it's wrong. Mm. They're doing really horrible things to their family members.
Are these things you've heard or things that Larry is doing?
Those are things that I've heard from other patients. Mm-hmm. If I look back, and you have to kind of look back because there's this pattern of loss that their symptoms develop over a number of years. But he started a new job driving a delivery truck and couldn't figure out how to work the gears in the truck. And Larry's been driving trucks his entire life.
Yeah.
Couldn't figure out how to work the gears. So they decided to put him on the small truck, and he was going to deliver using the small truck. He's delivering doors and windows, and it's a very physical job. He's always been a very physically fit, very strong person. And so he's lugging doors and windows across construction sites for building new homes. And he's coming home at lunchtime and he's exhausted, falling asleep on the couch, taking a nap. And then he eats some food, and then he gets up and he goes back to work after 40 minutes or so. And then he comes home, and before dinner, he's falling asleep on the couch. And, he started just not really talking to us anymore, just not really having conversations, just in his own world, on his phone. He'd sit on one end of the couch and I'd sit on the other end of the couch, and we'd have our dinner and we'd sit there and not talk to each other all night long. And then we'd go to bed, and it would be like, wow, we didn't even talk to each other all night long. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't like him. Larry was always the guy that when you had a party or you went to a party, he was the person that went to everybody in the room to make sure they had a drink in their hand. Are they comfortable? Is anybody talking to you? Are you lonely? Are you bored? Let me tell you something special about yourself. Let me tell you this joke or this thing that I heard. And he was that guy. He made everybody feel special. And that started going away. Like, he would go into a room and be in a party, and he'd be on his phone instead of talking to people.
How long ago was that when those symptoms started?
I can pinpoint to the day when these symptoms started, August of 2020. And the reason I can pinpoint it is one of the things Larry did is he started texting old girlfriend from Facebook. And I knew all of these women. I knew who they were. Like, we shared everything, every story, every boyfriend, every hurt, everything that happened to us, we know about. Mm-hmm. And it was just a fluke that I was picking up his phone for something, and it was like this text came in, and I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? Why is this bird? And he started texting his old girlfriends, and he wasn't texting them. Mm-hmm. He was talking with them about, hey, I was an M1 tank commander in the Army, and I was a security agent, a government security agent. And I was this. And it's like, he wasn't any of those things.
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask, was he those things?
What the hell? You weren't. Are you making up stories now? He would lie to me about bills that had been paid, or lie to me about the fact that the trash cans had been taken out. And I'm like, why are you lying about these stupid things? If you missed a bill, tell me you missed the bill and then go pay it later and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
For over a year, I was really confused. What is going on with him? And I thought, he's depressed. He's depressed. And a lot of people who have this disease, their people think they're depressed.
In August of 2020, how old was he?
55.
And you've known each other since he was 10 and you were 8. So you know him, you know his character.
I know him very well. Anything that changes, I'm totally in tune with what's going on with him. And he's totally in tune with what's going on with me.
Yeah. Okay.
I just couldn't figure out what it is. March of 2021, we had our first crisis, our first marital crisis. It was our anniversary. And I put together this special dinner. We were going to have steak and wine and, our favorite meal. And it was just the two of us. And our son was off spending the night with somebody. It was going to be a wonderful anniversary. We don't go out where we live. There's no restaurants. You're not going to go out for dinner. So I made us a lovely dinner and we were going to have this lovely evening at home. And every time, I wanted to talk with him about intimate things and lovely things. And every time I brought up a subject, he's like changing the subject and talking about superficial things. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I keep trying to bring the subject back around. And I'm just getting really frustrated with him. I'm talking about, I had been going through menopause and I know that I'm not the sexiest person and I've gained 30 pounds and blah, blah, blah. And he says, yeah, you were a lot more fun when you were younger. And I said, what? Yeah, when you were in your 30s, you were a lot more fun. Yeah, no shit. So were you. We're both in our 50s. That's what are you talking about?
So that was out of character, though, is why your mouth dropped.
Very out of character.
Okay. It's not like he was that kind of guy.
When I tell you that Larry worshiped the ground I walked on, and when I tell you that Larry put his family first in all things, Larry was always very careful never to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you the truth about what I'm seeing. I'm going to tell you what's going to make you feel good.
Right.
Always, 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 always. When I'm making dinner, his first question is, well, what about Gabe? Is he going to like this? And it's like, Gabe is going to be fine. It'll be okay. Right. There's always other people. For him to say something like that. And so I became very angry. And this, of course, really put a kibosh in the entire evening. And our habit, is I'm going to give you a back rub and then we're going to go have sex because that's a wonderful thing, right? And it always was a wonderful thing. Well, it's our anniversary and let's go have sex. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Go ahead and insult me and we're going to go have sex. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that right now and see how well that works. And I said to him, I am so pissed off at you right now. I am not interested in being with you. But if you really think that that's what you want, let's do it. And he went for it. For 40 minutes, that man went for it with me not reacting in any way. I was just like, how far is he going to take this?
Wow.
And I realize now that he didn't understand sarcasm. Didn't understand social context. And he doesn't understand where I am emotionally. And he doesn't understand that I'm even angry. So with this disease, they totally lack any sort of insight. They can't understand jokes anymore. They can't understand sarcasm anymore. They can't identify emotions. Their emotions are blunted. Apathy is rampant. You see it first as depression, but it's not depression, it's apathy. They don't want to do anything. The things they cared about, they're not interested in doing.
How did it get diagnosed? Because how'd you go from just mad at him to there's a real problem?
So all summer long, I was super angry with him. And I tried to make up with him and we had conversations and we were doing our own kind of like therapy at home. And nothing really happened until October of 21 when we had both decided that he was just exhausted from this delivery job and he was going to go back to driving a school bus, which is what he had been doing previously. We're going to go back to that because you can handle that physically. So he went and interviewed for the position, got the position, started training for the job. started packing a backpack with a box knife and brass knuckles and tools and screwdrivers and things like this that he wanted to have on him on the bus so that if the kids attacked him, he would be able to protect himself. And I didn't know that he was doing this.
What age kids are we talking about?
We're talking school age, elementary school, middle school, and high school kids.
Okay.
He'd be driving all three ages at different times in our county. And he wasn't telling me this, but he was telling his coworkers this.
Okay.
And he came home at lunchtime one day and said, well, I've been fired. And I said, what do you mean you've been fired? Well, I was telling them about this and I was telling them about that. And my eyes are bugging out. What? You're telling them what? And so they fired me. And he was totally unconcerned.
I see.
I'll just go get a job tomorrow, another job tomorrow. And it's like, all of a sudden, it was like this paradigm shift. Like visually, if you were to describe it, it was like whoosh, like the aperture of the lens just focusing in all of a sudden. And I just realized he has a brain disease.
Oh.
There's something wrong in his brain. I don't know what it is. In that instant, realized he is sick.
Yeah. And
that is what all of this means. So I start Googling, Dr. Google, and I come across the site, the AFTD.org has a website.
What's that stand for?
All frontotemporal dementia, I think is what the website stands for.
Okay.
It's a research organization. They help with caregivers and they have more resources than any other company out there that I've been able to find. They're affiliated with a lot of research hospitals and they've got a list of symptoms and they've got all these videos. And 10 years ago, they did a spot with 60 Minutes about FTD. I had never heard of FTD. I thought they were a floral delivery company.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Right. But no, it's this disease called frontotemporal dementia. And very little is known about what starts it, but it was described by a doctor called Pick at the same time that Alzheimer's was discovered many years ago. And they actually worked in the same facility, and Pick discovered Pick's disease before Alzheimer found Alzheimer's disease. And they actually used each other's research. And Pick discovered in the brain of people who had died that had this disease, these small bodies, these clumps of protein called Pick bodies, just these small, round little clumps of protein in the brain of people who were afflicted with this. Similar to the way Alzheimer discovered the tangles and plaques and all this other stuff in the back of the brain. And there's a saying amongst neurologists when they're going through medical school, don't pick disease, because you'll see one patient in your lifetime that has it. Mm. They estimate that there's maybe 50 to 60,000 people in the United States that have it, which is a very, very small number.
Yeah.
And under this umbrella of diseases, you have behavioral frontotemporal, they call it BVFTD. And the first symptoms that you see are these behavioral symptoms like what Larry was exhibiting: lack of empathy, not understanding sarcasm, apathy, not wanting to do anything, still retaining memories, still retaining the ability to count, still retaining the ability to do activities of daily living. It's not like somebody's forgetting where they put their keys or putting their wallet in the freezer when they go to bed. It's nothing like that. Nothing like what you see with Alzheimer's. And doctors, when they see a patient like this, and including our doctor, we first went to our primary care physician when I realized I made an appointment that day and said, we're going. Mm-hmm. And I walked in and Larry's telling them how he was an M1 tank commander in the Army. And he wasn't in the Army.
I mean, it's not funny, but.
It's not funny, but it is. I have to laugh because what we're going through right now is just so awful. If you don't laugh through some of these things, you're not going to make it. You cannot maintain the level of despair that you feel when the person that you love is disappearing in front of your eyes. You just can't. So we go into the doctor's office and he's telling her all these things and I'm sitting, he's in front of me and I'm behind him going, and she's picking up on all of the clues that I'm sending. I didn't send her an email ahead of time, but a lot of people have to do this because their patients refuse to acknowledge that there's anything wrong. And it's called anosognosia. They don't understand that they're sick.
Right.
They feel the same that they've always felt, although they aren't the same as they always were.
Yeah.
And so she's ordered all of these tests to test, thiamine levels and B12 and blah, 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 all of these things, Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, all of these blood tests that it could potentially be. And after the tests all came back negative, she said, I think he's got a neurodegenerative brain disease. I don't know what it is. She says, when he first came in, I thought he was having a psychotic break. When you told me all of these things that he's saying are not true, she says, it either had to be something organic, like all of these blood diseases, or something in the brain, or he's had a psychotic break. And she said, I want you to go see a neurologist. She's a PA. She's not even a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But she has been our rock. She's been the one person that we can count on. Every time I call her or email her or we're in her office, it's, what do you need? What are you seeing? What can I do? Who can I call? So that was November, and we couldn't find a neurologist to see us. What with COVID, all of these offices closed down and people couldn't get in and the appointments are backed up. So we finally got in. I decided to come down to Tampa. We live in the northwest panhandle of Florida, in a very small town. And although there's a level 1 trauma center in Pensacola, there are not good doctors and there are not good hospitals. The Mayo Clinic is 5 hours away in Jacksonville, and then there's Tampa. Well, I'm going to go down to Tampa because that's where my sister lives and our family is. And we have a place to stay and we have a support system. So we scheduled an appointment with a neurologist in Tampa, one of the best that was recommended, and we could get in, and he ordered a CAT scan and an MRI, and we did all these tests. And when I walked in, he starts testing Larry's memory. One of the questions he asked was, who was our former president? And he couldn't name our former president. He says, who's our current president? He says, Biden. He says, what's his first name? He says, Joe. He says, okay, now what about our former president? He's like, tall businessman from New York, blonde hair. He says, oh yeah, he was an asshole. He was an asshole. He's like, yeah, but you can't tell me his name. No, he says, like, it begins with T. He's like, I can't tell you his name. He says, it was Trump. He says, okay, yeah, Trump.
Yeah.
So he's decided that Larry has memory issues, and he's decided that he has Alzheimer's. And I don't walk into this doctor's office telling him he's a neurologist. Who am I? I'm just a person that did some Google MD to figure out what her husband has. I didn't walk into this office telling him my husband has FTD, but he's focusing in on this memory issue, and he wants to prescribe Aricept for him, which is a drug that is given to people with Alzheimer's to help slow the progress. Some neurologists prescribe it just to see if it'll do anything, to see if that's what it is, as a diagnostic tool, and then come back in 6 months and let's see. But I've done my research, and my research tells me that patients with FTD, when they take Aricept, their behavioral problems explode. It does exactly the opposite of what you think it's going to do. And I'm not going to go down that road.
Right.
So we, of course, did not fill it. And I'm like, I now have to find another neurologist who's going to get on board with this.
Is there a way to test?
There are some tests that can be done. There are some genetic tests. But if it's not a genetic case, the only thing that you can do is, you can do first the CT. You start with a CT, and you can see atrophy in the frontal lobe and the temporal lobes. And then you do an MRI, which gives you a little bit more detail. Now, Larry, when he was in his 20s, had a head injury. He was mugged. He was hit over the head with a 2x4 in the right front part of his brain. And he's missing a golf ball sized chunk of brain from where the brain died because of that injury. But he didn't have these behavioral symptoms. In fact, he was an incredible person,
Yeah.
Productive and creative and loving and caring and amazing.
Yeah.
Great carpenter. He's done a lot of work around our house, that sort of thing. Very emotionally intelligent person. When I say he saved my life, he truly taught me how to love a person and how to care for people and how to talk to people and how to be careful with people's feelings, where I was not that. Mm-hmm. I was never that. I was type A and I am right and you are wrong and this is this and this is that. And I was not a particularly sensitive person. So we get this MRI, and I was trying to tell, when you go in for an MRI, they ask you what your history is. And Larry's telling him how he's an M1 tank commander and blah, blah, and I don't get to tell him all of the behavioral symptoms so that the MRI tech is going to know what to look for. All he can do is really rule out there's no stroke. We're not seeing any dead brain tissue. We're seeing some minor atrophy here and there, but blah, blah, blah. And it's all very non-specific, non-patent. And I made a point of getting the copy of the MRI and getting the copy of the CT and reading these things. Because when we went back in to see the neurologist after the MRI, he's like, your MRI was perfectly normal. Well, it wasn't perfectly normal. He's missing a golf ball sized chunk out of his brain here. Right. He's missing tissue down here. I'm a layperson. And when I looked at these images, I was just astounded that he was able to function at all because there's so much brain tissue missing. Mm-hmm. And so, he sent us on our way with this prescription of Aricept, and I just said, we're not doing that. So one of the other things I came across was a podcast called Cannabis Helps Dementia. Mm-hmm. And I think my husband is about to go off kilter with his behavioral issues. I need to do something that's going to stabilize him. I need to do some sort of medication that is not going to hurt him. Right. Most of the medications that they use for any kind of dementia have black box warnings. Give your person this and they could kill themselves. I wasn't going to do that either. Mm-hmm. And so we put him on an SSRI, we put him on Prozac, and we put him on a high dose of CBD oil. Before I got my medical marijuana license in Florida, we were doing just CBD oil. And it was almost like a light switch with the way he would interact with me again. He wasn't interacting with us. He wasn't talking to us. He was just going about his day, just blah, 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 whatever he's doing, not talking to us. But as soon as I started giving him this CBD, mm-hmm. I could tell he was feeling better and he was smiling and he was interacting. And one morning I walk every morning for myself. I walk a 2-mile walk. Then I came in for my walk and he sits down with his cup of coffee, with my cup of coffee across the table from me. And he says, he smiles at me for the first time in months. And he says, so how was your walk? And my walk was amazing. How are you doing today? Feel great. Well, that's wonderful. So we finally found another neurologist a neuropsychologist that we went to, and we did these testing, the neuropsychological testing. There's a MOCA test, and there's all these, they test visuospatial things, and they test 5 hours worth of testing across 3 days. The poor man was like, I don't want to do this anymore. We finally got him through the testing, and the neuropsychologist sat me down. And in his office, when we first went there, I did say, I think he has FTD. Here's his symptoms. This is what I found. He is completely unaware of any problems that he has. This is what I think you're going to find. And at the end of the testing, he says, I think you're right. I think he has FTD. Here's what I found. He's got an IQ the equivalent of 64 right now. He is incapable he's got a naming issues. He can't name things. He looks at a picture of a hippo and calls it a camel because he can't recognize what the animal is. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned after some of the other testing that we've done, the frontal lobe manages our executive functions and our ability to plan and our ability to understand sarcasm. And that's where our personality lives. But your temporal lobe on the left side, where he has quite a bit of damage, the right side, he also has damage, but that's where you have difficulty matching up words with pictures or names with people. Mm. One of the first questions our friends were asking when I told them that he has this disease was, well, is he going to remember me? Is he going to remember you? I said, well, his memory is fine. He knows who I am and he knows who you are. But if I say Steve is coming over tonight, he's going to say, huh? Until I show him a picture of Steve. Mm-hmm. And then he's going to say, okay, yeah. Well, this is also where the language center lives, in the temporal lobes. And so he has, in the space of 6 months, he can't speak. He has single word sentences now. Right? Yes, no, coffee, Gabe, our son Gabe. He'll start a sentence with, so. And then he'll look at me and he'll nod at me and he'll expect me to intuit what it is that he's wanting to say because he can't form a sentence anymore. Mm. One of the things I noticed was the sound of his voice was changing quite a bit. Mm-hmm. He's losing muscle tone in his voice right now, in his throat. Yes, he cannot form a sentence anymore. And I'm convinced that when we went to see that first neurologist and he was asking him to tell him who our former president was, it was because he can't remember the word, not because he couldn't remember who Trump was. As I've watched him progress with this disease and the changes that have happened, it's all been around words and understanding words and understanding behaviors and understanding situations and understanding what's important, not memory, not counting. Those things are still there. He can still brush his teeth. He can still go to the bathroom. He can still dress himself. In fact, he's incredibly vain and very, careful with his appearance. Always has. He still looks at himself the same way in the mirror, but he won't shower. That's another part of the disease is they don't like water. And they don't like to feel unsteady on their feet and they don't feel comfortable. And so he won't shower alone. I have to go in and shower with him to help him shower. And I have to encourage him to brush his teeth and coerce him to brush his teeth and pay him to brush his teeth at least once a day because he has absolutely no interest in that. Again, this is part of the disease. Mm-hmm. And if it weren't for the fact that I had a really incredible support group, there is a woman named Sharon Hall who has been a caregiver for her husband with FTD for, I think it's 12 years now that he's had it. And his disease has progressed very slowly. It's all been in the frontal part of his brain. There's fewer semantic issues, and he has not progressed very quickly. But she has become quite the advocate and become very involved in research and the FTD.org and other organizations who are there to support caregivers. And she is a wealth of information. She runs a group every Saturday night and every Monday night. We get together and we talk about whatever it is. And there might be 6 people on the call and there might be 15 people on the call. There could be new people or old people. And we all bring to the group our questions. I'm experiencing this. How do you handle that? What should I do about this? They have a packet of information that they've typed up themselves that they hand out to you. Rather than drinking out of a fire hose tonight, we'll answer your specific questions, but here's all of the resources that you need to get yourself through this.
Yeah.
But with this disease, we walk into a doctor's office and they either diagnose it as FTD or you spend years trying to, chase what this diagnosis is. Is it bipolar? Is it depression? What is it? When you finally reach the FTD, well, we're real sorry you have this disease. There's no treatment for it. You need to go home and get your affairs in order. And that's it. Most people who are diagnosed with this disease are diagnosed in their most productive years. Larry was 57.
Right.
He's still earning. I'm still earning. My son's college isn't completely paid for yet. Thank God we bought a long-term care policy a few years ago. That is what's paying for his caregiver to come to the house and help me out because I'm still working full-time from the home. Thank God I'm working remotely, right?
Right.
And there's one woman that we know of that's 29 years old and just had a baby and has no interest in her baby.
Oh, that's sad.
Can you imagine? And so her family, her husband, her mother, her father, they're having to take care of this baby and her.
Right.
You lose your person, you lose their personality, but then bit by bit by bit, they lose a part of who they are and they lose their abilities. Larry's at the point where he doesn't want to eat anything. He doesn't want to drink. He doesn't like anything. He likes to go to McDonald's and he'll order some chicken nuggets and he'll eat 2 chicken nuggets and then he doesn't like the way they taste, so he won't eat them. I make a breakfast sandwich for him every morning. That's the one thing I know I can get him to eat. Scrambled eggs with a piece of cheese and piece of ham on some bread that's been grilled up like a grilled cheese sandwich. And he'll eat now maybe 3/4 of it and the rest of it goes in the trash. He drinks milk all day, every day, which has caused him to develop kidney stones.
Oh, no.
I've had to go find some sort of milk substitute that doesn't have calcium in it, but every milk substitute has calcium in it because everybody needs calcium. So I am now learning how to make my own oat milk from scratch so that there's no extra calcium in it. He can drink that to his heart's content. But it's like feeding a toddler. Do you want some spaghetti? No. Do you want this? No. Do you want this? No. Do you want this? So I make him that and he'll take a few bites of it and then he's done. And then he's ready for bed. So I am actually in a better position than a lot of people. A lot of people, their person still tries to be handy around the house. Talking with one of our friends the other night, and her husband decided he needed to saw the banister in half.
Oh, shoot.
Because he needed to fix it. So he grabbed a saw and he sawed it in half.
Yeah.
One decided he needed to fix the garage door. I mean, just terrible things that there's that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, the sexual behavior. Some of them get really hypersexual or hyper oral. They drink alcohol to excess. They chug if there's 6 bottles of wine, they're going to chug a lug 6 bottles of wine. Larry, we don't keep wine in the house anymore, but he will chug protein drinks that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the protein drinks on hand now so that I can put some sort of nourishment in his body.
Yeah.
And if they're all where he can see them, they're all gone.
Oh, interesting.
Just one after the other, after the other, after the other. So it's a challenge for caregivers. I mean, caregiving in any disease is really dangerous for a caregiver. A lot of times the caregiver dies before the person does. So you really have to get yourself in the right mindset. You have to get yourself physically strong. You have to get help. You have to know your limits. You have to know what you can do and what you can't do, or you're going to die.
Right.
I'm on a number of Facebook groups where I see the caregivers disparaging their people. It's horrible what they're going through. Don't get me wrong. It's horrible what they're going through. Oh, she wants apples, and I just have to cut up apples all day, every day, and she just won't shut up, and she just talks and talks and talks and talks. One of them said the other day, he collects rocks. What am I going to do with all these rocks? He just keeps bringing them home, and like every surface of my house is covered with these rocks. And I'm like, yeah. I said, every horizontal surface of my house is covered with Hot Wheels cars because he loves them.
Mm-hmm.
The table that he sits with, we have to move the cars out of the way when we're going to eat our meal. They will stay there until he's gone.
Right.
And when he's gone, we will give them away at his memorial service. I wanted to clap back at them and say, this is your person that you're talking about. This is the only thing they can do. They're collecting rocks. Maybe you should see the value in that too. And they just want to complain about their person. And it's like, this is the person that you love. Tara, I didn't know how to love somebody until him. And I didn't know how to love him unconditionally until this. Like a light switch. It doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter how hard it is to take care of him. It doesn't matter how hard I have to work. It doesn't matter how much sleep I will lose doing this. I'm going to lose him. He's going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I want him to be as comfortable as he can be. I want him to feel loved.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to feel safe. Nothing else matters now. That's my focus for him. The best advice that I received from a friend who was a caregiver for her mother is, don't lose yourself in this. You are the most important person in this equation. If you go down, the whole ship goes down.
Right.
When this first happened, my thought process was, well, I'll cash in my 401k. I'll stop work. I'll stay home with him. I'll take care of him. And she said, you can't give up your future because he has this disease. He doesn't have a future, but you do. Your son does. You can't lose sight of that future. You should continue working. And when it comes time that you need more help for him, then you bring the help in to help him. If you need to place him, then you place him.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to quit your job today and stop working today, you have nothing. You won't own a home when you're done with this. Your son won't go to college when you're done with this.
Yeah.
That was the most important piece of information that I ever received in this entire thing. That just stopped me dead. People say when you're a caretaker, caregiver, care partner, that you have to take good care of you. Well, what does that mean? What does taking care of me mean?
What does it mean to you?
It means sleeping, getting a good night's sleep so that I have a good mindset, so that I will be patient and kind and understanding. It means doing my morning walk. I walk 2 miles every day. That gets my brain going. It's got gotten me very healthy. I've lost 30 pounds in the last year. Probably a good portion of that is because of stress, but I started that journey because my doctor he said to me, you need to be on metformin. You need to be on this. We need to put you on statins. We need to put your cholesterol is high and your sugar is high and blah, blah, blah. You're going to die. Okay, wait. Lifestyle got me here. Let me see if I can change my lifestyle to get myself out of this. And in 6 months, I had lost 15 pounds and my numbers were coming back down and everything was looking great. And a year later, I'm 30 pounds down and my numbers are like the numbers of a 20-year-old. And
awesome.
My doctor couldn't be happier. I'm fitting in my pants again. So that's a good thing. Fitting in my pants is a good thing. I feel 100% better than I did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sleeping quite well. I tell him I love you, and he does have those words. Comes out like, but he says it to me back, and he kisses me and with abandon and will give me the hug that I asked for. And the other day, I was sitting on the couch and I had my feet up on the ottoman, and he came in from one of the things he does still do is he goes out to the front yard and he checks the anthill ants in our yard, and he'll take the tops off of every anthill in the yard. And then he might check the mail and then he'll come back in. But he comes back in and he walks by me and he grabs a hold of my toe and he wiggles my toe. It's the sweetest thing. Like, don't ever stop doing that. I love that. I love you, right? I hear other people complaining about, life is passing me by and our friends don't even talk to us anymore. Well, you have to invite them in.
Right.
They don't know what to say to you. And they are mourning the loss of your person too. They can't speak to him anymore. They can't have a conversation. You don't have to say anything. You just have to be there for them.
That's what I've learned.
And that's all I've asked from everybody is just be there for me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say anything.
Right.
But touch base with me. Let me remember that there's something on the other side of this.
Yeah.
This is not going to be the end of me or of our friendship. It's kind of on hold right now.
Right.
But there's a future. And I look forward to that future.
I'm sorry you're going through this. He's so lucky to have you.
Everybody says that to me. I am so lucky to have him. I really feel that way. All I can do is not spend my time with him during the day. I'm constantly in and out of the office going out to say, are you doing okay? How you doing? Can I get you something to drink? Blah, 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 blah. I love you. Can I have a kiss? Can I have a hug? That's the only thing we have left.
Yeah.
With cancer and other diseases, like that person is really sick and they really feel bad, but you can have a conversation with them. You can get closure with them. You can, like with my mom when she died, we did not have a good relationship my entire life, but the moment she got sick, I was there. And I was not going to miss that time. We had 4 months to be with each other all day, every day. And we hashed it all out and we fixed it all. And when she died, she knew that I loved her. And I knew that she loved me. None of the past mattered.
Right.
She did the best she could do with me. And that was good enough for me. I won't have that with him because he's already gone.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part.
We were just talking about that last night. My husband's father and his stepmother both are losing their memory, some form of dementia. And my father died with Alzheimer's. And
yeah.
I said that it was so comforting to me when my father died. Not at the time, of course, I was devastated. But once he died, I had my dad back. The memory of my dad, the real guy that I loved. And that was my sweet dad, not this weird Alzheimer's guy that didn't know me. In retrospect, it was a blessing once he passed and that I had my dad back, because now I feel like my dad's always with me. But when he was alive with Alzheimer's, which is what I think you're saying, is that he's there, but not there.
Yeah. There's this dichotomy that we have to live with. He's still here. He's not gone, but he is gone.
Yeah. Right.
He is still physically healthy, but he is dying.
Right.
He loves me. And he can tell me he loves me, but he can't share anything with me the way we used to share our lives together.
Yeah.
They call it anticipatory grief when you're caregiving for a person. You know it's coming and it's happening. But I said to you earlier, you cannot live with this level of despair day in and day out. It will kill you.
Right.
And so you have to find these little fun things. He just wiggled my toe. How sweet was that? That was wonderful. You know, we put on some music and I do a little dance and he gives a little smile. And, you know, that's wonderful. As I'm bringing him his dinner, he points to the bedroom where Gabe is. Yes, I'm going to go get Gabe too. He's going to have dinner with us too. Those are all great things. There is joy even in all of this. Someone sent me a page out of a daily devotional, and it's about caregiving. A loved one's diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or another dementia is always the unwelcome, heartrending kind of surprise. No one ever sees it coming. The news is always a shock, not only for the person with the disease, but also for the loved ones unwittingly thrust into a role they never planned to fill, caregiver. Allow yourself to marvel at this caregiving child of God. Your Heavenly Father has always known this time in your life. Before you were even born, he foresaw your needs as a caregiver. You are part of his plan for your loved one, and your loved one is part of his plan for you. Take his hand and let him quell your fears as you walk each new day on the shepherding path before you. And it goes over and says again, you are part of God's plan for your loved one, and your loved one is part of God's plan for you. I can remember when we first married, we said, we're not going to have any regrets. We're not going to regret not being married the first time around because, you know, if I had married you the first time around, Larry, I might not have been as careful with your heart as I needed to be. I might not have understood what love really is if I hadn't gone through that first experience. So no, I don't regret not being with you those days. But now I do, because we have so little time left. I would have loved to say we spent 40 years together, but that's not what we had. We had 20 years together, 20 amazing years together. And I will carry that with me forever. It will be enough. It will be enough.
I am reading this book that I think you might like, and it's called The Beauty of What Remains. A rabbi wrote it about death. He calls it the perfect sleep. Like there's nothing to be scared of because it's just the perfect sleep. And so I don't know, it's really just a beautiful book because I talk to so many people who maybe are dying or who have lost a loved one. And it's really helping me thinking about death. That you might like that book.
You know, I've got friends that are Christian and that pray for us, and I'll take all of that. Absolutely will take all of it to heart and appreciate it. But the one thing that drives me crazy, I've heard you in many of your podcasts, what people say as someone has died, oh, they're in a better place. There are some people who have said to me, oh, I'm going to pray for complete healing. And I've had to say back to them, please don't pray for complete healing because he's only going to be completely healed when he dies.
Right.
I don't want you to pray for him to die. I want you to pray for him to be peaceful and to be content and to be happy and to be unafraid. That's what I want you to pray for.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's all I want for him.
I really appreciated this conversation.
I appreciated being able to say. I think, Kara, the one thing I would want people to take away from this conversation I think we don't learn enough about ourselves as we're growing up. I think a lot of people are just, they're going through life and everything is going great and there's nothing wrong. And hey, I made this promotion and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you're hit with something like this. I would not make it through without all of the people that I'm surrounded by. It would be so easy to just fold in on myself and disappear with this. But my friends aren't letting me do that. And I'm not letting me do that. And so I would have to say, whether it's family or friends, those things have to be put first in your life because those are the people that are going to be with you when something like this happens.
And truly, that's all that matters in the end. I mean, people are so silly about every little thing, and it's only relationship that matters.
I mean, I think about all the dinners that we've had and all the car shows we've gone to and laughed with our people. And Larry and I loved life, and we lived life, and we loved the people around us, and we invested in the people around us in those relationships. And I am so grateful that we did that because they will remember him like I remember him, and he will be there with us because of that. He's not going to be with us, but he will. Another dichotomy.
To my point is that he'll be more with you.
Yes.
In a weird way. I wish I was there because I really want to hug you so much. I'm so sorry for all that you're going through. And I appreciate you telling me your story. And hopefully, if somebody hears this and, they remember to appreciate what's important.
I hope so.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of See Beneath Your Beautiful, hosted by Hara Allison. And thanks for your ratings and reviews. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Stay tuned.